Hello and welcome to day 47 of revising UPSC previous year questions for UPSC 2027. In this video, I will cover the third essay of the year 2024. I already completed all the essay of the year 2025, and thereafter I will jump on to 2026 later after completing 2024. So let's get started. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. In the vibrant courtyards of Athens more than 2 millennia ago, the philosopher Epicurus sat with his disciples to dissect the perennial human predicament, predicament, the relentless search for contentment. Outside their quiet garden, the imperial city bustled with merchants accumulating gold, generals chasing conquest, and politicians weighing for power, all operating under the firm conviction that wealth, triumph, and influence were the indispensable gateways to a joyful existence. Observing their perpetual anxiety, Epicurus remarked on a fundamental paradox. Humanity consistently defers its joy to an imagined future destination, failing to realize that peace of mind is not a trophy awarded at the finish line of desire but the very disposition with which one walks the earth. Centuries later, the Vietnamese monk and philosopher Thich Nhat Hanh crystallized this insight into a profound maxim: there is no path to happiness, happiness is the path. If you see this essay, guys, they asked the similar essay in 2025 as well. So, right after 1 year means the next year they asked the similar essay. That is the advantage of going through the previous year questions. And this year as well, they asked like directly from the previous year essays. They asked in 2024 as well, but you need to work hard for finding that from where they asked, but they asked directly from the papers. This deceptively simple aphorism challenges the dominant teleological paradigm of human civilization. From childhood, individuals are conditioned to view happiness as a transactional reward, a static terminal summit to be reached after crossing grueling milestones of academic triumphs, professional prestige, material accumulation, and social validation. Life is envisioned as a linear conveyor belt where present suffering is perpetually exchanged for future contentment. Yet when milestones Yet when milestone is finally reached, the horizon recedes once more, giving rise to what modern psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. The philosophical essence of the topic demands a radical inversion of his paradigm. Happiness is not an end state, it is a telos, it is an ontological way of being. It is not an exotic destination awaiting us at the end of an arduous journey, but the intrinsic quality of awareness, empathy, purpose, and moral integrity that we bring to every step of that journey. When the means become luminous with meaning, the dichotomy between the path and the destination dissolves completely. The teleological illusion, the mirage of the destination. For centuries, mainstream socio-economic structures have been constructed upon the illusion of conditional happiness. The prevailing civilizational narrative whispers, struggle today so that you may be happy tomorrow. In schooling, children are taught that true joy begins with clearing competitive examination in early adulthood. Happiness is tethered to corporate promotions, home ownership, and social status. In later years, it is deferred to the idyllic sanctuary of retirement. This instrumental view of existence reduces life to a series of utilitarian transactions. When actions are undertaken solely for the sake of a distant reward, the present moment is drained for its intrinsic vitality. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, Schopenhauer captured this existential trap when he observed that human life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. Pain while striving for an unfulfilled desire, and boredom once the desire is temporarily satiated. When happiness is treated purely as a destination, the journey itself becomes a joyless endurance test, turning existence into an exhausting marathon of unquenched expectations. Moreover, this transactional pursuit creates an acute vulnerability to external circumstances. When contentment is made contingent upon external outcomes, market fluctuations, political accolades, social praise, or material windfalls, the human psyche surrenders its agency to unpredictable forces. The pursuit of happiness degenerates into an anxious dependency, fostering an inner landscape dominated by fear of failure rather than the fulfillment of creative potential. Philosophical foundations. The synthesis of means and ends, the realization that happiness is the path, finds deep resonance across the world's greatest philosophical traditions. In ancient Indian philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita presents a timeless discourse on the unity of action and inner fulfillment through the doctrine of Nishkama Karma, selfless, detached action. Lord Krishna instructs Arjun, कर्मण्य वधिकरस्ते में कर्मण्य वधिकरस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of actions. Far from advocating passivity or fatalism, Nishkama karma is a profound psychological liberation. When an individual ceases to obsess over the fruits of action and instead pour unreserved energy, love, and ethical commitment into the immediate deed, the act itself becomes a sanctuary of joy. The path of duty is not a miserable road leading to an elusive heaven. Living aligned with dharma is itself the highest state of liberation, moksha. Similarly, Gautam Buddha's teaching locate the source of human suffering, dukha not in the external world but in tanha, the insatiable craving for outcomes that do not yet exist. In the Eightfold Path, Ashtangika Marga, the Buddha did not describe an external staircase to nirvana. Rather, each limb, right mindfulness, samasati, right livelihood, sama ajiva, and right action, sama kamanta, is an active daily practice. To live with mindful awareness and moral clarity is to experience peace in the present moment. Nirvana is not a post-mortem destination. It is the cessation. It is the cessation of craving experienced here and now along the path of righteous living. In Western philosophy, the Stoic tradition represented by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus arrived at an identical truth. The Stoics distinguished between things within our control, our thoughts, virtues, choices, and things beyond our control, fame, wealth, outcomes. True eudaimonia, true flourishing eudaimonia does not depend on favorable external fortunes, but on the cultivation of internal virtue. Arete, for the Stoic sage, virtue is not a burdensome ticket purchased to enter the gates of happiness. Virtue is its own reward, and the very act of living virtuously is identical with happiness. The socio-economic realm beyond gross domestic product, when transferred from the individual conscience to allocate, when transferred from the individual conscience to collective governance, the illusion of happiness as a destination has produced severe structural crisis. For nearly a century, global development models have treated gross domestic product growth as the ultimate destination of human progress. It was assumed that once nations crossed specific thresholds of industrialization, capital accumulation, and per capita income, societal well being would naturally follow. However, the empirical reality of the 21st century has exposed the fractures of this assumption. Nations with astronomical GDP figures and towering skylines are grappling with unprecedented rates of clinical depression, loneliness epidemics, chronic anxiety, and social alienation. The single minded pursuit of economic output has often come at the expense of family cohesion, mental health, community solidarity, and ecological balance. As the visionary economist Amartya Sen argued in his capabilities approach, true development is not the expansion of inanimate commodities, but the expansion of human freedoms and capabilities that allow people to lead lives they have reason to value. A pioneering departure from this transactional paradigm is Bhutan's developmental philosophy of gross national happiness. By anchoring state policy on four pillars: sustainable socio-economic development, environmental conservation, preservation of culture, and good governance, Bhutan demonstrated that well being must be woven directly into the daily process of governance, not promised as an afterthought following environmental des- despoliation. Similarly, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals (SDG) and the annual World Happiness Report emphasize that sustainable peace, gender equality (SDG 5), clean water (SDG 6), and reduced inequalities (SDG 10) are the foundational conditions of the developmental path itself, rather than distant trophies of modernization. Constitutional morality and the democratic journey. In the realm of political philosophy and public administration, the principle that the path is the happiness forms the cornerstone of constitutional democracy. In authoritarian regimes, the state promises a grand utopian future, a classless society, racial purity, or absolute national glory, and uses that distant destination to justify state terror, censorship, and the crushing of human liberties in the present. The end is held to justify the most barbaric means. Democratic constitutionalism firmly rejects this sinister logic. Democratic, constitu- Democratic constitutionalism firmly rejects this sinister logic. In a constitutional democracy like India, the process of governance is as sacred as the goals it seeks to achieve. The preamble to the Indian Constitution does not merely declare an end state, it operationalizes an ongoing ethical journey through justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's concept of constitutional morality reminds us that democratic values cannot be preserved through arbitrary or tyrannical shortcuts. When a public administrator serves the public with institutional integrity, administrative empathy, and transparency, upholding Article 14, equality before law, and Article 21, right to life and personal liberty, the process of administration itself becomes an embodiment of democratic justice. The citizens' trust is built not merely by grand inaugurations of completed projects, but by the dignity, responsiveness, and fairness experienced in everyday administrative interface. When governance treats human beings as ends in themselves, embodying Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, the administrative machinery becomes a source of collective empowerment. Environmental ecology, harmony with nature as a way of life. The devastating crisis of planetary climate change is perhaps the most dangerous consequence of treating human gratification as a destination achieved through aggressive environmental exploitation. Approached ra- Industrial modernity approached nature as an infinite quarry of raw materials to be conquered and consumed in pursuit of perpetual economic expansion. Forests were cleared, rivers dammed, and the atmosphere saturated with greenhouse gases, all in the race toward material prosperity. The ecological warnings highlighted by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have made it painfully clear that a destination reached by destroying the living earth is a collective suicide. True ecological well being demands recognizing that sustainability is an ongoing relational harmony with the biosphere. Ancient indigenous traditions and Indian cultural heritage have always revered nature not as a commodity to be exploited but as an interconnected web of sacred relationships. Prakriti and Purusha, the philosophy of lifestyle for environment, life championed globally by India, reiterates that ecological happiness lies in mindful, non-violent, and circular consumption. Aparigraha, when societies adopt sustainable agroecology, decentralized solar microgrids, and circular water stewardship, the daily act of living becomes an act of ecological restoration. We do not preserve the planet to be happy in some distant century. Living in gentle, reverent harmony with the earth generates immediate vitality, health, and spiritual peace. The Gandhian Symphony, purity of means and ends. No historical figures in modern history personified the truth that happiness is the path more completely than Mahatma Gandhi. In the era dominated by Machiavellian realpolitik, where imperial powers and violent revolutionaries alike believed that noble ends justified violent means, Gandhi declared that means and ends are convertible terms in nature. He wrote, the means may be likened to a seed, the end to a tree. The means may be likened to a tree, to a seed. The means may be likened to a seed, the end to a tree, and there is just the same inviolable connection between the means and the end as there is between the seed and the tree. For Gandhi Satyagraha, the pursuit of truth through non-violence was not an uncomfortable tactical bridge built to reach the political destination of Swaraj, self-rule. Non-violence, ahimsa, was itself the lived reality of freedom, a freedom won through hatred, deceit, and bloodshed would inevitably establish an internal tyranny worse than foreign rule. Gandhi derived profound spiritual joy from the daily rigors of the path, spinning the charkha, cleaning village latrines, walking thousands of miles on the Dandi March, and dialoguing with adversaries. Because his happiness was entirely anchored in the moral integrity of the ongoing struggle, no colonial prison could break his spirit, and no political setback could induce despair. He did not wait for the formal transfer of power on August 15, 1947 to experience the joy of liberation. He was free in every conscious breath because he lived the truth he sought. Everyday consciousness, the art of living in the present. On the canvas of daily human existence, shifting from the destination driven illusion to the path centric realities to the path centric reality transforms our psychological well being. Modern cognitive sciences and neurobiology reveal that chronic multitasking, dopamine driven social media validation, and perpetual future anxiety elevate cortisol levels and fragment human attention. When people constantly live in the next moment, they develop a chronic incapacity to experience the richness of the present moment. To discover that happiness is the path is to cultivate what ancient masters termed mindfulness and what modern psychologists call the state of flow. A teacher finds happiness not merely when the class graduates, but in the luminous spark of curiosity ignited in a student during an ordinary lecture. A physician experiences fulfillment not merely in institutional honors, but in the compassionate bedside touch offered to an aligning patient ailing patient, and an artist rejoices not solely in the applause of the gallery, but in the quiet focused movement of the brush across blank canvas. True joy resides in the simple, overlooked textures of daily life, the warmth of shared laughter around a family dinner table, the discipline of daily physical exertion, the quiet beauty of a morning sunrise, and the unheralded satisfaction of extending a helping hand to a stranger in distress. When we stop demanding that the present moment deliver an ultimate guarantee of future perfection, the present moment reveals its innate completeness. The integrated vision, walking the luminous path. I said it in all the earlier videos that you need not to go through the you need not to write these headings and the flow diagram whatever you see, but because we are in practice, that is why you are seeing all these headings and all. Otherwise in mock or in real essay you need not to give these headings and all. You just go through, like, go with the flow in the paragraphs only. To recognize that there is no path to happiness, but that happiness itself is the path, is not an invitation to passive complacency, cynicism, or the abandonment of ambitious human aspiration. Human civilization must continue to build hospitals, eradicate poverty, construct clean energy infrastructure, cure diseases, and explore the outer reaches of the cosmos. The profound difference lies in the inner posture with which these aspirations are pursued. When actions are fueled by a desperate frantic scramble to fill an inner void of insecurity, success brings only temporary relief and failure brings bitter devastation. But when constructive endeavors are undertaken from a foundation of inner wholeness, clarity and moral purpose, the entire character of human striving is elevated. Progress ceases to be a frenetic escape from the present and becomes a joyful, expansive outpouring of creative potential. As individuals, communities, and nations stand before the complex challenges of the 21st century, the collective challenge is to unlearn the transactional mythology of the destination. We must recognize that the ultimate measure of a human life is not the accumulation of titles, accolades, or material spoils at the end of the road, but the degree of love, justice, courage, mindfulness, and integrity infused in every step of the journey. In the quiet words of the poet Antonio Machado, traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking. When every step on that walk is illuminated by empathy, ethical awareness, and selfless service, the traveler discovers that the sacred destination was never somewhere else. The path itself was, is, and always will be the sanctuary of true happiness.